Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Marketing Genius Unpacked, our first one for 2026. Excited to be back here speaking with all of you. And today we're talking about really interesting playbooks for marketing, particularly within product marketing, of course. And I'm your host, Josh Porter, founder of Bit of Genius Consulting, where I help AI, enterprise, startups, and growth stage companies turn complex technology into customer-centered stories that actually drive outcomes. Today's episode is about marketing data center modernization in the age of AI. And more importantly, how do marketers build trust, credibility, and empathy while doing it? I'm joined today by Adam Glick, a seasoned marketing leader and a technologist who currently serves as Senior Director of Product Marketing at Dell Technologies. With more than 2 decades of experience across cloud, AI, and enterprise tech, Adam specializes in building organizations that sit at the center of sales, product management, and marketing. He's led product, solutions, partner, and thought leadership initiatives at Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Dell. And he believes that customer empathy and trust are the foundation of great marketing. And as a personal note, Adam and I worked together back at Google and there a while ago. And he was one of the first marketers that I knew that ran a podcast, which is very meta now having him on here. He ran the Kubernetes podcast. So very excited to have him today. Adam, welcome to the show.
So great to be here and to see you again, Josh.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's get into our deep dive questions. So let's talk big picture. How is AI reshaping business transformation strategies today, especially for companies modernizing their infrastructure?
Yeah, AI is it's hard to overstate the impact that AI is having on the business world right now. Of just the world is really shifting around what is happening with AI and what does that mean for organizations. And what we see is the people who are really leading the charge, the people who are really getting the most impact, and the people that are separating themselves from their competition really have an AI first mindset. And that mindset is taking hold within organizations. They're thinking about not just how do I use AI to augment, but how do I rethink what I do with the use and the power that AI can bring to that. And I'm using AI as kind of a broad category because the reality is you can apply AI in so many different ways within an organization. And so when we think about what's happening in terms of business transformation, what that looks like for people who work in product marketing, like you and myself, looks very different than what does it look like for people who are in legal or who are in IT.
Mm-hmm.
And all the different parts that go with it. And so it's how are people rethinking all of what they're doing with that kind of AI first? What does it mean that there's these new tools, and not just how do I do what I do with these tools, but with these tools, what can I change with how I do it? And so you're seeing a lot of real reinvention going on, and tied to that, because that's a very wide open space, that can lead to a lot of science projects. And so what you're seeing, what you're seeing take hold is people did a lot of dabbling that happened, especially a couple of years ago. And really what folks are looking for right now is real ROI. What is it that I can do that's really going to deliver value? That it's not just kind of hey, cool, look what, OpenClaw did for me. That's what can it actually do for my business? And what does it actually mean to transform what we're doing? And you're seeing some of those early use cases really kind of stand out. The one that everyone talks about a lot is code generation. And if you're a developer right now and you are not using some sort of AI augmentation for your code generation, you are just simply not going to keep up with the people that are, because it can generate so much there. And what you're also seeing is these things build upon each other. The people that have that AI first mindset, who start bringing these tools and see that ROI, you'll see what we've seen, what I see, is that people start with one thing and then they realize, oh, I can do this other thing. And so it's kind of the concept of compound interest from a technology standpoint. So, we often talk about technical debt, are you buying technical debt? What's your technical debt? This is literally the opposite. This is compound interest for impact.
I love that. Yeah, it's really interesting. And I like how you said that. And as someone who's been marketing AI for about 8 years now, well before it was the hot ticket item, yes, you do see lots of those science projects. That's exactly the term I use. Science projects. It's oh, we'll dibble dabble in here and maybe that'll work out, maybe it won't, but no real money's put behind it or to really see the light of day when it comes to customers. But you got to be able, from your perspective, you're obviously seeing customers try it out and seeing it not only impacts exactly what they were hoping for and brings real value, but it also there's this effect in other areas, kind of this halo effect with something they weren't expecting in the first place.
Yeah. And organizations, like, it's a skill like anything else, and people build that skill. And so what happens when you start to, build your data science teams, when people start to think about what does it mean to use these tools, how do LLMs fit? How do other systems that are different from LLMs fit in from an IT organization? How do you manage, operate, secure all these pieces? Like, it's both how you run the things that you do, but also how you change what you do. So if you think about security, like, how does security change differ in a world where instead of like getting constant alerts from all your different security tools, you have an AI agent that's literally looking through those and understands not only which ones are important and which ones not to pass along, but can understand and identify patterns of like these three things that aren't that important, if they all happen at the same time, could indicate something that is important. Like, that's the kind of stuff that you're starting to see people pull out of them as they start to build not only the skills of having these and using them, but building the systems and operating them and what that means for transformation.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's a big piece, having those skills for that transformation. So when companies think about modernization, the stakes really feel high. So, what messaging actually resonates with most customers who are trying to modernize their infrastructure?
Sure. So I got to give a hat tip to one of both of our former colleagues, Quentin Hardy, who said it best. And so I will simply paraphrase him. He was one of the writers we worked with, and he said, what motivates people is what gets them promoted or what gets them fired, and start from there. And
Yeah.
It's a bit of a brute, a blunt force object, but he's not wrong in that. And I've always that stuck with me that he said that, because you start with what's the motivation of the people that you're looking at? What is it that like matters to them? And then within that context, what are the needs they have to achieve? Are they, looking to do this project because that's their bright, shiny object? That's the transformation of their company. That's their promotion opportunity, or they need to get this done or they're out the door, kind of thing. So what is it that they need to get done? But you have to always start with what's the customer's perspective and what matters to them. And you can look at, what's the mission of their organization? What are the broader things? But in many cases, it really does come down to the individual, what they're responsible for and what matters directly to them. And so,
yes,
what is it you're focused on? What gets them promoted or fired? And then what I think really good product marketers, and this is especially true in the B2B world that we work a lot in, is like a good product marketer is really a good educator. If you look,
yes,
I jokingly say, they're like a second grade teacher, and I mean that.
Yeah,
I bet you know the name of your second grade teacher. I know
Miss Landgraf. Yes,
exactly. Mrs. Knopf. Like, she was my second. I still remember who she is, and why? Because she did two things that were super important. She taught me things. I learned from her, and she made it engaging. Going to school wasn't a chore. It was something that was fun. And good product marketers are storytellers that tell the story that help people learn about how their lives will be better, because it's about them, with the use of your product and or service. At the end of the day, we kind of make slimming mirrors, if you kind of think of it that way, of like, we want to show people the better forms of themselves. This is what you could be if, we can help you achieve this. And the reason that I flag kind of slimming mirrors is you have to show people what better looks like, but you have to be careful about what you do. I remember you and I, like when we were at Google, people would talk about like, what does Google do? And the challenge that we ran into is Google was so far in a different world than many of the customers we talked to that telling them that it didn't apply to them. It was a comparison that they couldn't see themselves in it. They'd be like, great, but you can hire, the best engineers in the world and bring them together, and you've got money blowing out of the air conditioners, and you can spend on, projects and take 10 years to build them. And like, they didn't see themselves in it. And so we had to transform what we talked about. And indeed, as marketers, we always have to like show them, hey, it's not what you can be in 10 years. Like, that's a great vision to plan. That's a great thought leadership piece. But what is it they can be next year? What is it they can be in 6 months? It's those things that like, okay, I can see myself in it. You look in that slimming mirror and it's you, but you're looking just a little bit better. Hey, that sounds good.
Yeah.
And so, it really does, tie back to like, what's in it for them? It's an old timeless principle, but just
Yes.
like what
With
they
them.
care, what they
What's
care
in it for
about,
me?
what are the projects they're working on that do that? And then how do you show them that what you're doing can help them achieve that? Because they don't care about you. They don't care about your product or service. They care about themselves. So how do you put
Yes.
it in their context for them? And that's how that's how you really resonate well in a modernization conversation, or frankly, in any marketing conversation.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right on that. It's like, yeah, the acronym with them. What's in it for me? You got to think about it from that perspective for your customer. So, yeah, they don't care that it's AI. They don't care about the most modern, tech stack. They just care if it's how's it gonna impact them specifically. And you got to know who that is that you're talking to. You got to talk to the buyer. You got to speak to their motivations. And you're right. It's like, what are those motivations? Like, is this going to get me hired, or is this going to get me promoted or fired? So you're 100% right on that.
The one thing that I will put in there, especially for like the enterprise space where people are working, is people really do need things that, we talked about educating, we talked about storytelling, of like, you need to bring the information that helps that happen. So like, in the enterprise space, and even down the stack from that, looking at like an ROI calculator. How can people really see what the numbers are and what they can expect as they do their planning? What are the voices that they're going to listen to? Talking to a respected analyst firm, or even better, getting customer testimonials. People want to hear from them. If you think about, go out to dinner. And so you and I, we go out and we're going to grab a beer. We sit down, and, while we're sitting down, a bus goes by with an ad for Budweiser on it. And the wait staff comes up and they suggest, a lager. And I tell you, man, I had this pale ale that was just out of this world. Man, you need to try this. Which of these three are you going to choose? You're going to choose the testimonial that's most focused on you. The same is true when customers are making purchases. Those customer testimonials that tell the story that people see themselves in is going to be the most impactful. Doesn't mean you don't do the advertising. Doesn't mean you don't do the paid promotion, that your sellers don't come in. But people are going to look at, who are the people who are talking about it, because they already made that choice themselves. They're not being paid to do it. They're there because they actually want you to have the best experience. And customer testimonials just make those things, put the customer out there to tell that story. People are going to remember that, and that's going to have the impact you want.
Yes, absolutely. You got to be able to have those testimonials from other people, because you can try to sell yourself all day long, but it's not going to make near as much impact as if somebody else were to, talk about the way that you've served something. Like if I were to talk about how great great barbecue I make, you're probably gonna be like, well, of course you think it's great or whatever. But if I ask our friend, someone else that we know, and say, but they say, no, Josh, his barbecue is, amazing, then you put more credence into that. So that's absolutely a good principle for sure. All right. So now that we kind of think about what resonates with customers, how should marketers balance innovative storytelling with technical credibility, especially for AI and infrastructure conversations?
Yeah. So you bring up kind of two parts of the spectrum, and I don't think it's an either or. I think it's, how do you do both together? So, you have to make that story relevant, but you have to make people care about it too. I often talk about, like, if you're not telling an interesting story, we're humans, we remember stories. And if you're not telling an interesting story, if you're just basically a walking data sheet, if you're just, a walking fucking data sheet, like, people won't care. Like,
Yes.
you're Charlie Brown's teacher. You're like, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
The dictionary is incredibly useful. But do I sit down and I read the dictionary? No, I go to the dictionary and I need something. Like, no one's entertained by it. It's something that you go and you do because it's a necessary part of what you're doing. Yes. Likewise, it's really, sometimes people get caught up in telling, a really amazing story. You see this a lot sometimes in brand marketing. And you're like, oh my, you see this in advertising. Oh my God, I saw this amazing advertisement. It was hilarious, or it was heartwarming, whatever. And you're like, and who was it for? And you're like, oh man, I can't remember. And you're like, Okay, like,
Yeah.
did you achieve what you meant to do? Like, maybe you're aiming for that Cannes Lion someday, but like, if you're looking to influence people, you got to do both. And so it's
Yes.
how do you tell that relevant story, and how do you back that up with data? You know, people often say it, but you can't say it enough of like, show, don't tell. I can tell you I
Yeah.
have the best product in the world and everyone thinks their baby is the prettiest. But,
Yes.
you know, I'll give an example from when I was working at AWS. And I was talking to someone who was a representative of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And he was like, you know, can you handle our kind of volume? They were at that point, they provide email addresses and email services for all citizens of the kingdom. And he's like, you know, I know you think you're big, but like, we're talking an entire kingdom here. You know, can you handle that? And I could have just said, oh, sure, we can handle it. How much credibility would that have built? But instead I said, you know, Netflix runs at the time, you know, 1/4 of all evening traffic in the United States. You know,
yeah.
Reddit has over, you know, 1 billion users accessing it a day. You know, Shopify is doing at that time, it was, you know, some double-digit percentage of all online transactions. I said, all of these run on top of us at the same time. I said, are you that kind of scale? You know, do you think that and
Right.
and you saw it just kind of click in his mind. He was like,
Yes.
oh, okay, you can handle like what we're looking like. We are not that scale. If you can handle that, all of it concurrently, you can handle. And so rather than telling him, yes, of course we can, giving examples and letting him remember that.
I love that.
Telling that story, like he's going to remember that because
yes,
they can do that. Like when he goes back and he talks to his boss and the people there that he needs to convince, he's gonna be like, what's he going to do? He's not going to spout a bunch of numbers. He's going to say the same things. I know they can run Netflix and Shopify and, you know, all these things at the same time. He's going to remember that because that's the human storytelling piece. And that's how you build credibility. So as you're looking at, you know, what you do in the enterprise, it's ultimately all relationships come down to trust. So how do you build trust? And you can build trust by being forthright and honest in what you do, delivering on what you say you do and doing that consistently, and providing data and information that's easily verifiable for folks to look at and believe in you. Because when you build that trust, like that trust has value not only in the interaction that you have now, but through the life of the relationship. Like there are many folks that look at customer lifetime value. That was a big thing at Amazon.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you look at like, is having a good return policy really good financially? In short term, the answer would be no. I mean, take a look at, you know, but Nordstrom's has a great return policy, Costco, Amazon. Why do they have Zappos? Why do they have it? And the answer is it's not about that particular transaction and returning that pair of shoes or that barbecue or whatever it is, but it's about because you know that you have such an agreement with the customer feels perfectly fine buying things. Like I bought a bed from Costco online, having never laid in the bed. That's crazy. I'm going to sleep in this thing every night. 8 hours a day I'm going to spend in this thing. I didn't even lay down on it. And why? Because they'll bring it to my house to do it. And for some reason, if it wasn't what I wanted, they'll come pick it up, take it away, give me all my money back. There's no risk in it for me. I know that they'll stand behind it. So I'm willing to make that spend and do that with them because of that. Same thing with Amazon. Like I buy far more than I've ever returned from them. But knowing that I can means I feel much more comfortable making that purchase. You're building that trust. And as marketers, we should always be telling the stories and providing the information that help foster that trusting relationship between our organization and our customers.
Absolutely. I mean, it's in like manner, Patagonia. I like they're obviously not the cheapest out there, but I know like the other day my zipper broke. I know that I can take it back to them and they'll either fix it or just give me a brand new coat. And that's a trust in some other brands that I don't have. So that just keeps me coming back for sure.
That's a great example. Yeah, I do that. I got my team some Patagonia jackets, and you know, I looked at it and I was like, you know, you ever tried to replace or like get a Port Authority jacket repaired? Not happening. Do people feel proud in that? Like, you know, like there's so many other things that go along with that, and Patagonia extracts a premium in the market for those things.
Exactly.
And I happily pay it. Like that's a win-win.
Yeah, totally. But I like going back to the examples. This is what we're talking. We're talking about an example. Is that idea what you're saying about show don't tell. So when people ask you about something, you give them specific examples. Don't just simply say yes, we can do it. Those examples stick with people. So that's huge. And I like what you said about like nobody's going to sit down. I mean, some people might just sit down and read for their book preference a dictionary, but they're gonna read, like, I'm reading the latest Dan Brown book, Secret of Secrets. Because why? Because that's entertaining, that's fun, that's interesting, it keeps me
Mm-hmm.
intrigued. I read that over reading the dictionary at night because it's giving me a story to follow, some suspense, and a series of events to to go down.
Dan Brown has
So
got to be proud
yes,
that he's beaten the dictionary with you.
absolutely. I'm sure that was his main goal. And then on top of that, I liked what you also said. It's like there's story, but then there's also there's the entertainment values. Like, are you bringing some humor into it? Because yes, you can have the funniest commercial in the world, but if nobody can tell you who it was for, then it's not really useful. It's not targeted. So you got to balance that out. You don't want to be like this walking data sheet you said, or super dry, or walking dictionary, where it's like, yes, I've got a bunch of facts.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be, but you don't want to be this, walking, clown either, where it's like, yes, I can make you laugh, but what use is it going to be? Now you could argue, yes, there's use in helping people feel better, but as a marketer, you've got more, you got a bigger purpose. You got to be able to tell a story, make them feel something, but also about something that's useful to them. So I really like how you put that all together. All right. Next deep dive question is, because data plays such a role in these conversations, what role does data play when positioning modernization solutions to buyers?
Sure. So I love a quote from Dr. Deming, who, if you haven't read Deming's work, like that, just like side note, like hit pause on this, go grab some of his work. I mean, just foundational work in terms of organizational efficiency. But one of his great quotes was, "In God we trust, in all others bring data."
Mm-hmm.
And back to exactly what you were talking about there, about like, the great storytelling tied with great information. Great information is tied to data, especially objective data that you can bring in. And so that's how not only you are going to like help get that across the line with your customers, but especially when you're working in the enterprise, it's not just your customer, but they've then got to go to a buying committee and all the other people within their organization. They become your advocate within the organization broader to get that deal done. And so how are you going to help them achieve what they want? I talked earlier about like ROI calculators, for instance, or going in and doing studies with trusted analyst firms to take a look at, levels of efficiency or increased sales or whatever it is that your particular product does. Like, help put some numbers behind what it is, because when you just say, oh yes, we can do that, whatever, like that doesn't instill a tremendous amount of confidence. Versus if someone says, I can, we can increase, your customer CSAT by, 10.1% on average. And we've done that over, 15 customers that we've run this with. That's the average that we see. Which of those is going to leave you with more confidence? Which are you going to look at? Like the salesperson, the marketing materials that said, hey, we can do that for you, or the one that like literally took you to, a tenth of a percentage point in terms of specificity on what they've done and backed it up with how many customers they've done that with in order to meet that. Like, you're going to go with the one that's more specific, that provides that data. You're going to feel more comfortable with that you're not taking a risk. Because the higher you go up the stack in terms of who you're marketing to, the less it is about technical capabilities. And the more it is about like executives are manning risk and opportunity. And so
Mm-hmm.
talk to them about risk and opportunity, and how you quantify those things is how you're going to help move the dial with them. So data is incredibly important when you say like, you should adopt our AI tool because it'll make you more efficient. Okay. Versus
Yep.
saying people who are using, Claude Code, for instance, whatever tool people choose. But, if you're using Claude Code with Cursor, we have 100,000 developers that are all, working with this. And what we've seen is they're generating twice the volume of code that they did before using it. Okay.
Yes.
Like that's a lot more, hey, or like taking a look at like, quality of code, organizations taking a look at what's their bug count that's coming out of them. What's the
Mm-hmm.
velocity? How long does it take them to, achieve creation of a feature? In some cases you're seeing people doing like really interesting vibe coding things where it's like, hey, I don't do a mock-up in like, PowerPoint or Figma. I just vibe code it and say like, hey, this is it's not the finished version. It's just a working prototype, but you can actually poke at it. And what does that say? Like, how much credibility is that build? Bring that data, bring that experience to folks. That is going to move the dial and make people much more interested and far more trusting of what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. again, going back to those examples, when you bring a life example like from a customer, then that is data. Or you could also say, these are the things we can make you do better, or 2 times as fast, or 3 times as fast, or, half the time. Um, that really is huge because that sticks with people. It's like, yes, can we do the job? Yes, but how well can you do the job? What are the specific numbers? What's the quantitative way we can help you improve your process? And so when you're able to come with that, and I mean, it's double, you get double points if you come with a customer reference, because you're saying, well, for, your competitor, we help them improve their coding processes, twice, 2 times over. And so, yes, that's huge, and that sticks with people for sure.
I mean, it's, for people listening to this podcast, they're probably marketers of some sort. And so think about when, the people that you're hiring, jobs you're doing, do you hire the person that said, I helped us, increase our company's pipeline? Or do you want to bring in the person that said, we increased pipeline by 83% doing these 3 events that we did, and this is the outreach that we did, and this is how we tracked it? Like, I know which of those people sounds more interesting to me. Like,
yes,
that data builds trust.
Data builds trust. Absolutely. That's the key takeaway from that answer for sure. All right, Adam. Well, I really feel like this has been a great conversation. I love how you get consistently back to empathy, trust, really helping out the customer and showing them what's the best version of them as possible, not just selling features. So really appreciate those insights. Now, of course, before we wrap up, I want to get into a rapid fire round and hear your answers on what you feel like are the best way to approach these. So you ready for it?
Sure, let's do it.
All right. First question, favorite marketing tool?
Oh my gosh. I have to pick one.
Yes.
Oh my God, there's so many. So I'll pick one that I really like that's probably non-traditional. Maybe it'll open up some people to something new. It's called MonSpark. Mm-hmm. And it has a bunch of different features, but the one I use is basically screenshot monitoring. And you can use that basically as a notification for anything. So competitive intelligence, seeing what's changing on competitors' sites, see how your site shows up. You can access it from different geographic locations, see how things show up from different geographies. If you're doing internationalization or localization, checking prices, SEC monitoring, see if new SEC filings have gone in, like so many things. And it'll just send me a Teams chat or send me an email or text me. As soon as those things happen, I use it for a million different things. And it's a great way as a marketer just to keep tabs on your own stuff as well as your competitors.
Awesome. That's such a huge thing, is you got to understand your customer, but then you also got to understand your competition. And this MonSpark tool is a great way to do that, because you can't, you can check your competitors' sites every day, but who's got time for that? Exactly. Who's got time for that? So that's great. MonSpark, everyone. All right. Next question. What's the most underrated skill in product marketing?
I'd have to say storytelling. There's so much product marketing that I see these days that is still just data sheets, and people like spitting out data sheets. Like, if you take nothing else away from all this, like, humans remember story. They connect with people. Doing great storytelling that delivers that, like, it's always in short supply in product marketing, and people can do it really differentiate themselves and their offerings.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's all about bringing those stories to life, not being that walking data sheet. It's funny, just you telling the story of this walking data sheet. I have this image in my mind.
Stuck in your mind.
So it's stuck in my mind. That's you telling a story. Very, very meta there. All right. Next question. What's the biggest mistake to avoid in product marketing?
I think it probably ties to the same thing there, of just of thinking that your job is to tell people about your product. Your job is to help people succeed in what their goals are, hopefully with the use of your product and or service. And don't forget that order, that it is about the person and what you're doing. Like, no one wants to read a data sheet. People read a data sheet because they think it's going to help them solve their problem. Talk to them about their problem and what you can do for them. The rest should follow.
I love that. It's such a great way to position it, because we're called product marketers. And this can be so easy to just stick into, like, I'm representing the product and I've got to get this out and ship it, get people to really can be convinced that it's for me. But you got to flip it around, because in the end, marketing 101 is knowing your audience, understanding
You'll
the
often get
customer.
pressure to like, hey, I want you to talk about this feature or this thing. And as good
Yes,
product marketers, you need to be the steward of your customer and say, like, this is what really matters to the customer, and work with the product team. Say, hey, like, we will talk about that, but we need to put it in the context of that they care about it. Like,
totally,
don't be
totally.
the world's worst first date and show up and just talk about yourself. Like, no one wants that person.
Yes, exactly. I like that phrase, the steward of the customer. Steward of the customer. I think that's powerful. All right, what's one thing you wish you knew when you started?
Whew. Well, I guess starting out as an individual contributor, I wish I just would have understand that my job was to make my boss look good, and my boss's job was to reward me for that. And anytime that gets out of balance, there should be a conversation. And as the person reporting the boss, you need to understand what the win is, what's important now within that context. And so what does your boss care about right now? Same thing's true with customers. And so what can you do to help support and make that happen? As you get more seasoned and you move into management, there's this, this pressure of just like, I'm going to crack the whip. I'm going to go make this happen, go do it. And realize the most powerful thing as a manager that you do is you set the culture for the organization. And so really thinking about the actions that you take and what is the culture you want to create within the organization is going to be the most impactful thing. And that's certainly something that I wish I would have like known when I first started doing management. And, if someone can learn from my mistakes in that and learn that, like, start with the culture you want and then let the activities flow, you're going to be a much better manager and you're going to be much more impactful.
I like that. That's really helpful. That's a good way to kind of break it down in terms of, as I see, understanding what makes your boss look good, and hopefully they reward you for it. And then as someone who manages others, setting that culture and helping them grow. And so that's awesome. All right. Last question. Favorite podcast?
I mean, besides yours, Josh?
Besides mine, of course.
I was like, this one accepted, of course, because that would be the one. But beyond it, the Acquired podcast. I've listened to those guys for several years now, and just it is not short. Their episodes, a short one would be an hour and a half. They can typically go 3-4 hours. Sometimes they break it into multiple parts of that length. But if you want a deep dive on companies who are transforming, like both historically and these days, and what they have done, just those two folks are amazing at the level of depth they go into, what they talk about, the stories that they dig up. Again, back to the concept of stories. It's not just a bunch of like, here was their stock price on this date and here's what they launched this. Like, they put the narrative together in a way that really is just engaging. And I know it sounds crazy to recommend, like, go listen to like a 4-hour podcast, but I guarantee, go listen to one of their episodes. You will be hooked.
Okay. All right. Definitely hear a lot of people talk about it. I haven't checked the episode out yet, but now I'll have to. So awesome. All right, Adam. Well, thanks again for joining me. This was really packed with really good perspective on how marketers can really sell AI from a customer perspective and what they really need to think about right now. So thanks again for joining. Really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. It's always great to connect with you again, Josh.
Absolutely. And to everyone else listening, this has been another episode of Marketing Genius Unpacked, where we break down how AI and companies can build trust, craft stories, and execute go-to-market strategies that win. You can find this episode on YouTube, of course, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. I'm Josh Porter from Bit of Genius Consulting. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.